if you had to pick someone to play on the top line power play, who would you go with in that, specifically in that void left by Strom?
Well, I think you put Trocheck at the centering position. Kreider on the left, Panarin on the right, Zibs and Fox, kind of situation you got going. Um, to I had my first line going out. I have Laugh up at the right instead of Kako there, which I feel like Laugh gives us the best option, and then I have Kako down with Trocheck and Panarin. Um, I'm really excited to see how Trocheck like really works with Panarin because I personally I believe he is an upgrade over Ryan Strome and Andrew Kopp. So I like the style he plays. I like that he finds the open man, but I also like that he's gritty enough to get down in front of the net and screen the goaltender himself. So I'm really excited to see that. And as for Laugh being up on the first line, I think he deserves to be there. Obviously he's naturally a left winger, so sliding him over to the right, I think he has no problem there. But who knows? There could be some shuffling throughout the season where you might see Laugh go back to left wing, If something happens to Kreider, God forbid, we need another 50-goal Kreider season. But I think that's kind of like um having Lafreniere be able to play left or right wing is almost like a Swiss Army knife. Kind of like having Barclay Goodrow on the lower. He could be a center. He could be a winger. So I think having all those types of people really help that, barring any injuries um, or any poor play, I think you have options to be able to switch up lines pretty, pretty easily there. Um, who do you have on your lower two lines, Steve?
So, starting with the third, this is kind of why I want Laugh on that bumper roll to give him a little bit of play time. I see him on the third line, in his natural left wing spot, playing alongside Heedle and kind of maybe carrying some of that kid line success, especially if Heedle can kind of put it together the way that we were watching him do it in the playoffs. You mentioned Goody on the wing. I have them down on the third, or him down on the third with
Oh, you have Barkley
Laugh
on
and
the
Heedle.
you have him on the third line, not the fourth.
Well, so remember we have Blais. We're gonna have some competition. I like Carpenter as that fourth line center. And I'm a sucker for Reeves, although I think we're gonna see Dryden Hunt. I think we're gonna see some competition for that last spot, as much as I hate to see it. But you never know. I mean, Blais had some good chemistry with Lafreniere. They could always play again together. Goody can kind of come down and play that tempo role. Don't forget, Blais was on the fourth line with Revo for a short period of time when he did play with us, and they thump. I mean, the both of them are going to be in the corners and making life difficult for people. So I guess if you set the same tone, Blais makes sense, but maybe it depends on your opponent. So I have it as Laugh, Heedle, Goody, Blais, Carp, and Revo. Who's your? Well, I guess what's your ideal fourth line? I guess.
Well, I think Hunt is going to be like, see how he plays. We know Turk loves some Dryden Hunt, so we know he's going to be there. So my fourth line, I got Hunt, and then I got Goodrow as in the center position, and then I'm also a sucker for Ryan Reeves. So I think I have him on the wing there. So I like a gritty line like that, which would be Hunt, Goodrow, and Reeves. Like I think that's a fourth line that like they can make things happen out of nowhere. Goodrow will get some opportunities, but we also won't take anyone's shit by having that fourth line out there. As for my third line, I got Sammy Blais on the left, Heedle centering, which who knows where if Heedle's like lights out, you never know. He might move up. And I would hate to say Trocheck moved down to the third line, but you never know. It depends on if Heedle keeps developing. And
But
then
he can play that style. In other words, Trocheck. I feel like also.
yeah, and he's a little bit older, where I don't think it would be like a hurt his morale moving down to the third line as long as the team's winning and he's getting opportunities. And then on that wing, that right wing, I got Kravtsov.
Excellent.
So as for I never went over my second power play unit. I would have Laugh, Heedle, Kako, Truba, and Kravi.
All the kids and the captain.
And I thought about it really hard today because I feel like, you got to have your captain out on the power play. Um, and I do like Truba up top, but if he isn't giving us the production we need of that second power play unit, I think you could even almost send up Keandre. I like how
100%.
Keandre plays, and I think that, like I said, if Truba's, we saw him in the postseason a little bit, couple rough goes here and there, a couple bad penalties, like, just because he's the captain. We've talked about it before on shows. That doesn't mean that you get that ice time, and sometimes the captain's not your best player out there. So I would Truba/Miller, I would put there for that second power play unit.
It makes a lot of sense too, considering who we have around those guys. It's like it's not gonna be Lindgren, it's not gonna be Schneider. No knock to those guys, but they play a different brand. So, especially when you consider not only Keandre's ceiling, but when you consider the guys around him, I think Keandre makes a whole heck of a lot of sense in that role. So, kind of along the same Truba Keandre line for the defenseman, I think Heedle is the no-brainer. I feel like you give him the chance to. It also is nice to have a second center out there, because I would actually have Trocheck, like I mentioned, Laugh being on that bumper role. I would say that Trocheck's game and leadership veteran mentality, I feel like, would also lend itself well to that second power play line. You have Heedle in case he gets chased, meaning you have another center that can slide into that faceoff. You couple that with, like I said, either a Truba or a Miller, and then probably makes sense to have Kako with those guys. With that type of a line, so it would look like, Vinny, Heedle, Kako. I mean, you mentioned Krabby as a option for that line. You can imagine Goody's going to be killing some penalties. Probably imagine that Revo is not going to see much special team time. So when you get down to it, all the decisions actually kind of become quite easy after a while. So, if Krabby's starting to score some goals, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe there's a game or two where we're up by a goal or so, and we get a late power play. And some of these guys can see some time where maybe they wouldn't have. So, I mean, if we're talking lines, my second line, Panarin, Trocheck, Kravtsov. This is because Kako in this situation has slid up to that top line, and this keeps both Kako and Kravtsov in their natural right wing. Although I can totally see a shift happening, like
Wait,
you
so
had
you got Laugh
mentioned.
on the third line then?
Oh yeah, Laugh third with Heedle and Goodrow. But again, this is to keep the guys in their natural spots. But I do sort of see what you're saying about like a switch up where you can have Laugh slide up to that number one or number two role, with some flexibility, knowing that Heedle can even play the wing. Goody can play the wing. I mean, people can kind of shift and slide around.